Right. So
Yeah.
what if it sort of ends with this, right? So let's say Cersei blows up the Sept of Baelor. Young Griff comes in. And again, I'm viewing this in the terms now just only of like, here's chapters we actually know have been written.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a different framework than our normal sort of like, well, I don't know, you figure it out, and it like these things could happen in the next book or whatever. So sort of from this like you're confining things to a one book, not just the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So what if it ends with, say, Cersei blows up the Sept of Baelor or the Dragon Pit, whatever, has to flee back to Casterly Rock. This let's say it wipes out some of Young Griff's army as well, right? Regardless, it's going to cause citizens of King's Landing to say we want him as our king, which would then set up a Mummer's Dragon. Daenerys is on her way back,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like, okay, we've got a Blackfyre Targaryen, whatever, actual Targaryen in theory, sitting the Iron Throne. Cersei's gone; she's gone back to Casterly Rock or whatever. You have Daenerys coming over. So now it's setting the stage of like, Daenerys is coming over and a Targaryen sits the throne. But then the book ends with Jon being resurrected at like the very end. So now and then like you have Jon Connington possibly at the Citadel revealing to Sam with the grayscale, they become friends, whatever. Oh no, actually Rhaegar had a son. And Sam puts together that it's Jon, and then we get the Jon resurrection chapter. So now you end the book with 3 Targaryen suitors that
Mm-hmm.
could be the real deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe that's not like the final chapter or something, but then maybe you end it with like a Melisandre thing, learning, and it's not just Azor Ahai, it's the 3 heads of the dragon, and
Yep.
you've had some other crazy shit go down with like Euron, where the wall's coming down and we've met because we're supposed to be going further north than ever,
Right.
these others, or something that's going on. So now it's like, it seems like what's going to happen is a possibility that no, there's like a there's going to be a war breakout between these 3 dragon kings,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
Jon, Daenerys, the 3 dragons.
Right.
And maybe there's going to be reason or something for them to all sort of fight. Jon doesn't really want to fight. Griff's like, hey, I'm in charge. And Daenerys is like, that throne is mine.
Right.
And then we learn that maybe Melisandre, who has already burned Shireen, possibly, I think Davos will come back, just like in the show. I don't think Davos is going to be there to see it.
Yeah.
Melisandre gets booted out, and it seems like we're going to Asshai, so maybe she goes back to Asshai and
Yeah.
learns more about this prophecy. And it's like, okay, now what we've got is a possibly war or confrontation breaking out between our 3 dragons,
Yeah.
and I need to unite them in order to defeat
The yeah.
the other, or
Others.
Euron if he's controlling them or whatever.
Right.
So, because
Yeah.
I think that's a very likely possibility given a lot of these chapters.
Yeah. Yeah. And the eyes and ears sort of beyond the like far north will again be some sort of Bran chapter. And again, he could also come down and fit into that whole situation, like you said, whether the wall comes down or Melisandre, goes and learns what she needs to learn from Asshai. I like that actually a lot, that she would come back and maybe be, now I see it more clearly, because she has totally not been seeing stuff as clearly as she should be, or misinterpreting stuff. And to have a battle set up with 3 dragons or whatever, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, or 3 people who could potentially lay claim to the throne makes it highly interesting. And yeah, given the point of views, yeah, like Jon is off the table, or he's off the chessboard this whole while. Because I was thinking he'd come
Right.
back earlier, but now that you say, well, wouldn't it be a cool reveal for Sam to figure this stuff out at the Citadel with Jon
And then be
Connington?
like, it doesn't matter because like it's not like, oh, I got to go warn Jon. It's, well, actually, does he doesn't know that Jon's dead.
Right. So that's the whole thing, is it still does kind of build a dramatic irony, because you're like, okay, he's figuring this stuff out. We're realizing this. And then what are they doing with Jon? Jon's on ice, who's brought him back, or because you can just, as far as like timeline and when stuff happens, you could still tell a whole story before we go to the event. You could just save, even though that moment happened in a dance, right? You can still pick up there later, but just not pick up there at the beginning of the book. You can pick up midway or later if
Right.
you want to. If you want to, I mean, you
Right.
can do a few things with like Melisandre or whoever, and figure out what the heck's going on there. So,
Yeah.
'cause-
So okay.
yeah.
So how many to shift gears here just real quick, how many chapters do you think we're going to get of Arya, and how many do you think we need to even tell her story? Because he has mentioned her quite a bit to just be like, all right, now I'm back with Arya and she's killing people or whatever, so those have been some of his blog posts.
Right. Because he did the whole suppose like the Mercy chapter with the some of that going on. What we saw in the show was just that, yeah, she just needs to continue to grow as an assassin. So her story can really still stand alone largely and just take us to it's almost like a break, right? We take a break, we go over and we learn something about Arya. The only thing that could happen that would be interesting is like if Hardhome or somebody else sort of like makes their like we learn on in Arya's point of view that people were coming from Hard or like wildlings or who knows, because we do have like the Night's Watch show up there and different people who are leaving King's Landing on the run, Um, that would be kind of cool. So I don't know. I think I mean, how many? Let me see how many she's had in the past. Five. Maybe five to seven or something like that. Um, just depending if he's going to do a whole 73, chapter. If you and Jimmy got up to like 60 some, I mean, I could imagine.
Right.
I could
I think
imagine.
we're going to be right. I think we're going to be right around the same thing. I think it's going to be somewhere between, I would say, 65 and 80 chapters,
Yeah.
because I just think some of these chapters are going to be bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless, I mean, regardless, it could be more, it could be less,
Right.
but we're going to be somewhere in that realm of chapters. And I guess now it's like, okay, let's look at how many POVs we've got. I mean, how much, let's go to Dorne, right? What story actually has to be told in Dorne? We know we're getting minimally 2 Arion chapters, possibly more.
Uh-huh.
So with Arion, we're dealing with what? We lost. We're gonna have to deal with sort of the fallout of oh god, what's his name?
Quentin.
Quentin Martell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's try and go get young Griff. We still have to deal with Darkstar and Marcella too.
Right. Yeah. So Arya Hota, right? That's the big speculation is that he's going to be killed, right? He's on his way down to bring in. He's going with Sir Balin Swan to find Darkstar. They've put this on him, and he's already had a point of view in Dorne as the guardsman standing behind Dorne Martell when the peaches are dropping and the gout conversation. I mean, my God,
Right.
So you could have him again be another point of view and talk about what's happening with that battle, and then maybe maybe he's killed, like everyone believes he's going to be killed in that battle, and you learn something about a plot. So we then the reader, even though Hota dies and he can't take the information back to Dorne Martell, we then learn about what the Sand Snakes are up to. I don't know if it's Obara or one of them's going down there, and Sir Balin Swan, what is he going to think? And then Darkstar. So all of those people could be in cahoots. They all could be plotting together. And if we learn that, that's a really cool one-off chapter that he could do. And then when they show up later, we now know some of the plot or some of the plotting that they're up to. So yeah, that's in Dorne. I feel like that's something that's going to happen. And then because Ariane is just sort of communicating with her father back and forth in letters and stuff or whatever, ravens, and she really is our Dorne lens, because once
Right.
Hota's gone, I don't know that we're gonna get like a Doran Martell point of view
Right.
or something.
Right. You could keep Marcella around until the final book, and then
Yeah.
do something. I guess it just kind of comes down to what ultimately George's plan with Cersei. Is Cersei going to be make it to the end game or not? I feel like you've built her up so much, it'd be hard to just kill her off without
Right.
some sort of meaningful thing, especially with Jaime and Brienne still out there. And then also the wrestling, Jaime and Brienne wrestling with Jaime and Brienne.
Yeah, as to what to
Uh,
do there, and yeah. Right.
what do you think? What do you think? Because I haven't asked you about that. What do you think he means by that? So
Well,
he did he? Do you think? First question, sorry. Do you think he's done writing Cersei and wins? Like he wrote all of her POV and now it's done, and then he's going to write Jaime and Brienne.
Yes. I don't know that he said he finished a clutch, which means he didn't say he finished it, but I mean, it means the
Well, I
90%
don't
of it,
think
or like, you know?
right. I don't think he would flat out. I don't think he would say I finished writing X character.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, if you're going to give people like an update at some point, I mean, what that wouldn't really tell us much. If a clutch versus him just saying, I finished Cersei. Well, okay. Wow. We're really close. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
well,
I
I
feel like
guess I just think
you think he's done?
George
You
is
think he's done with Cersei?
I 100% think he's done writing Cersei.
Yeah.
That's a ton of like minimally that's 7 chapters. Like
Yeah.
so minimally like 7 chapters of a
Yeah.
book
I mean,
that's possibly got 80 chapters in it.
right.
I mean that's a little that's just a
Well,
little under 10% of the whole book.
right. I mean, again, going back to 2013, according to Liam Cunningham interview, he was done with half the book in
Right.
2013. So, I mean, clearly, like a whole. I mean, he could be done with all the Arya chapters for all we know. Your question was, do I think that he's done? I think Cersei's so difficult for him that if there is one final piece, and then he the correlation to Jaime and Brienne. Well, she's thinking about Jaime and what is he going to do with Jaime and Cersei? Where is their story going? So he has to sort of write those in tandem. He has to understand what Cersei's thinking. He has to know what Cersei thought about Jaime when he writes Jaime's thoughts about Cersei. You know
Right.
what I mean? Later on. So that's why I think it's like, okay, if he finished Cersei, then and he's shifting there. All he's doing now is making sure, and that might be the easier part, right? Is finish one line of thought for a character, match it now up with what Jaime thinks, whether it's in I don't know whether it's in contrast to what, like, whether they think the same thing or think the same things about each other. They're going to be reflecting on one another, and she's either going to do, I think, one of two things: either stay in King's Landing, like you said, blow up the Sept of Baelor, or she's going to be moved and go to Casterly Rock, which is something that the show took us there. I thought George at one point said we were going to go to Casterly Rock. We've never seen it. We've never we've
Right.
not really had anybody go there or whatever. So she's either going to go that direction. But then the Jaime wrestling with Jaime, because your second question was wrestling with Jaime and Brienne. That is really, I think, just how do you tell what's happening with Lady Stoneheart and whose
Right.
point of view do you pick? Right? Do you
Right.
pick
Are
Jaime
they
or
actually
I
wrestling?
think they are wrestling actually.
Yeah.
So it's a funny thing. Like he himself is wrestling with the two characters, right? He's wrestling with how they all, the Jaime Cersei connection, and then he's also wrestling with like Jaime's feelings for a renewed Kingsguard, Brienne, honoring your oaths, Lady Catelyn, you're finishing that whole arc up. But I think there actually might be a fight between those two as well. Like they're wrestling. And then the other wrestling side of that, which I just mentioned, was who do you start with? Like point of view, do you tell that like as you're entering Lady Stoneheart's camp, do you do it through Jaime's eyes or Brienne's? You know what I mean? That's a choice. You and I always talk about the choice
Right.
that you use, because if it's Brienne, she's telling us her plan. She would be thinking about her plan. It's probably Jaime because he's like, I can't believe this, wretched, wench
Right.
would capture me like this, and she would do all this crap to me. And so then you're like, then you're thinking, God dang it, I thought they were going this direction, and Jaime's thinking this, and then Brienne, her point of view, we have to then figure out through Jaime's eyes what Brienne is like. We'll look for her body language and stuff and say, all right, is she really? Because the thing is, Matt, this book is going to come out, and that is 100% what you and I are going to be doing. Is we're going to be
Oh,
reading the
yes,
Jaime chapter,
yeah.
right? And we're going to be reading the
Yeah.
Jaime chapter, and we're going to be analyzing Brienne and her actions. Is she really taking him to Lady Stoneheart, or is she really turned against him? That kind of stuff. So that I
Right.
think is what is so difficult about his writing style, um, is to decide, make those decisions. Think about one more thing too. Like when you decide and you look back at the other books, I love doing the point of view read throughs, right? You take Bran, you just read the whole thing. You've always said Daenerys is pretty easy to read. John's pretty easy to read on its own. But then the tough one has, what I always thought was tough was when you had characters who were next to each other, and you have to decide. Dany's pretty easy. It's just Dany's point of view. You just tell that. You don't have to worry about what another character's point of view is. But when he puts someone like, so think about this. Now Dany is there, when she shows back up with Tyrion, how do you balance those two things? So you would wrestle with that, just like with Jaime and Brienne, who have had distinctive points of views, and they've been point of view characters. Now you've got to decide how to make them sort of work together. And when you pace out, like, when do you drop a Jaime chapter and a Cersei chapter, right? So Cersei
Right.
could think this in chapter, let's say it's 10, right? But we might not get a Jaime chapter until, like following that, a couple chapters later or whatever. And it has to kind of connect to what Cersei, it's a lot to keep track of. Yeah. And like through the course of a book. And so, I just feel like, man, I don't know. Like yeah, I would be on board too if because I think he's finished multiple point of view arcs, So if
Right.
Cersei's is done, that's what. First of all, whether it's a clutch or it's all the way done, it is clutch because he's said that it was a difficult batch to get through, and we know that as readers, we understand that there's a lot going on in King's Landing that we need finished up. So that's encouraging, highly encouraging, and I think the wrestling aspect is just there must be a strong correlation between what's happening with Catelyn, Lady Stoneheart, because that's not too far away. The Riverlands, she's there. Kevin Lannister's been killed. She needs Alex. She needs Jaime back. And she wants him she's got Sir Robert Strong, who she's going to use, right? But she prefers Jaime near her when these times of distress. And she's been pushing him away, right? So Jaime's super close to her in the beginning. She pushes Jaime away because she's got the kettle black. She's got all these other lovers. She's got other stuff going on. And then now her father dies, Tyrion's gone, her kids will start to die. You know what I mean? Like then she's going to want him back, and he's with Brienne. So it's a really interesting wording, good wordsmithing there by Gert.